Good morning, afternoon, evening. Welcome to another episode of the best DFS show that just happens to start at 8 Eastern Standard Time. My name is Rob Diamond, Rob Diamond on Twitter, Sir Robert6 on all the main sites. And welcome to another NHL Breakdown brought to you by RotoPros.com. Come check us out. Hit me up on Twitter anytime. Get at me on message boards. If you have any questions about tonight's slate and DFS or in NHL in general, don't be afraid to ask. So I don't want to spend too much time on today's video. I always say that, and it always runs way too long, but I'm going to try and do this quite quickly here today. So, as always, we'll start with the screen share. And the 20K didn't happen last night. It was really close for a few minutes there when all my Detroit Red Wings and New York Islanders stacks started hitting like super hard, but unfortunately it just couldn't hold. But yeah, in terms of today's starting goaltenders, we'll take a quick look at that. As always, we will start with that. And just give me 1 second here as I just bring that up again to make sure. Yeah, we're all good. Perfect. Okay, so yeah. Let's take a look at this. So yeah, we have the first game obviously is the Jets traveling to Florida, but we don't have to worry about that. It's early, so it's not on the main slate. So really, Kubota will be starting tonight against the Leafs, which is pretty interesting to me. I think that gives a slight uptick to the Leafs, where I honestly wasn't even really giving them that much of a chance in the first place. Without Austin Matthews, this isn't the same team. Don't let them fool you. John Tavares is a really good defensive centerman, and he helps complement the offensiveness that is the Austin Matthews show. So I don't expect the Leafs to be firing at full cylinders, but yeah, we'll get to that. The second game is a repeat of last slate where the Penguins travel to New York Islanders. This will be a really interesting game. I'll be surprised if they actually start Matt Murray in this game. They're probably going to start Casey Smith, and I think I'll go back to saying this time that I shouldn't say go back. I'll reverse what I said last time, and last time I was all over the Islanders, obviously, but I think going back to Pittsburgh this time will be pretty smart. Then we have Washington traveling to Montreal, and Washington's in a real serious situation because Braden Holtby's been absolutely garbage this season. He has like a .88 save percentage, or goals against average, excuse me. Just an overall bad situation right now for the goalies in Washington. So yeah, I'm not saying play price. I'm also not really saying a game stack, but I'm definitely saying don't jump on Holtby here if you think it's a safe play, because it really isn't. The New Jersey Devils traveling to Detroit. Detroit's on a 3-game win streak. I'll talk about that a little bit whenever we get to the breakdown of the slate. But in terms of Corey Snyder's about to start here eventually, this may actually be the night that he starts. And unlike most goaltenders, I'm not reserved whatsoever into jumping in with Corey Snyder if he happens to play tonight. But the very next game after there is the Predators taking on the Lightning. Jussi Saros traveling to Vasilevsky. Now, Pekka Rinne is back off injured reserve. I would be very surprised if Nashville throws him right back into the mix against Tampa Bay. And if that is the case, and if Rinne does play, you have to play Tampa Bay again, no matter their ownership. Buffalo's traveling to Ottawa in a really interesting game stacking-esque game because, well, in all truth, Carter Hutton's been playing half decently. We'll talk about that. But in terms of this game, I think it could go either way, but there should be a fair amount of goals. And speaking about goals, the next game is the Golden Knights at the Blues. And this is a double digits goal total game waiting to happen. Fleury's let in at least 3 goals in forever. And Jake Allen's been an absolute disaster as well. Even at home, he's been letting in 5 goals on the regular. So these are neither teams really have a goaltender option for this game. All their forwards are firing at full cylinders right now, so I think this makes for one of the better game stacks of the night. Chicago's traveling to Edmonton. Chicago and Vancouver played last night. They do have an incredible play this slate that I'll get to, but it looks actually like they're going to be starting Cam Ward, and if that's the case, this changes everything. But if Corey Crawford does start, we can safely fade McDavid and his lack of ceiling tonight, especially in GPPs, because there's going to be a lot of other centers with just as much, if not more, upside. Speaking of that, we have the Colorado Avalanche taking on the Calgary Flames, and Nathan McKinnon should absolutely shred tonight. And Varlamov is really safe goaltender pick because of how bad the Calgary Flames have been in net, in particular Mike Smith. And the next game after that is Rangers at the Ducks. This is another really interesting game because the Rangers are on a road swing on the other side of the country right now, and they're winning games. So it's really hard to instantly go with the Ducks because they've been playing so brutal as well. They just lost last slate, interestingly enough, to the Flyers, who are also on one of these road swings, same as the Rangers. So basically, I'm not too interested in the Ducks right now, despite John Gibson having a great go. They just aren't playing well enough to win games, and you'd want to take John Gibson in cash, not GPP. So I'm not really into that. But the next game, Jack Campbell will be starting against Brian Elliott when the Flyers come into LA. And this is one of the most interesting games of the slate for me in terms of goalies because Brian Elliott's absolute garbage and Jack Campbell's serviceable. He still has potential even at his advanced age. But in terms of this game, I think LA is super sneaky all around. They're a super defensive team as is, so they should be able to stifle the Philadelphia offense, unlike the Ducks were able to do last slate. So I am looking at Jack Campbell. I am looking at some Kings pieces, but I really like the Kings for like a 4-0 win there. And the last game of the slate, the Blue Jackets are at San Jose, and this should be an absolute blowout for San Jose. Bobrovsky's been an absolute garbage for him this season. His heart's not into it. I mention this every video. He's not going to be a Blue Jacket at the end of the season, so he has no real interest in winning for them. So I think Martin Jones is a pretty safe play despite losing last slate. I'm just hoping that sets people into some recency bias, and we're able to get Martin Jones at lower than normal ownership because he deserves to be fairly high owned. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions about Columbus, especially about their first line, which is more predominantly stronger at home than they are away. So I think this is a really sneaky game for Tampa Bay, and they have some really incredible options that are absolutely demanding in both cash and GPP that we'll take a look at. But yeah, let's jump right into the slate here. I'm not going to touch too much on FanDuel this slate because a lot of this just rolls over both ways. The same thing is occurring in both. Really, my takes are identical on both sites, so I'm not overly concerned in terms of getting a different take in FanDuel. But yeah, we'll still jump into this right away here. Let's start at the beginning. As always, Dallas is traveling to Toronto. I'm not really interested in either goaltender. In particular, Kubota just isn't a 6.8K against the Leafs. I guess he could be like, if you want to be super risky in GPP and buy into the script that Toronto won't be as good without Matthews, definitely jump on some Kubota in this slate. But a lot of my focus this game will be on Dallas. I think Lindell still makes a really interesting play at 3.8. It sucks that he scored last night because I don't really think that's an overly sustainable output, but he's been doing really well as of late. And basically any game Dallas wins, he gets at least 2 fantasy points. So if you think Dallas is going to win, you kind of have to play him from 3.8K. And I think Dallas is going to win tonight. It looks like Radulov's going to be out a significant amount of time. So it's interesting to see how they will set up their lines. I'm not really interested in Pitlick or Dowling, where I'll be paying attention to, especially this slate as a whole, is a Devon Shore at 3.2K. I think he makes for one of the sneakiest plays on both sites. His salary is way too low. He's playing excellent minutes, excellent role minutes with Radulov out injured. So I really have no issue with jumping on some of him this late because in terms of overall buy low scenario, he's really a buy low right now because he's actually doing quite well. As you can see, he's had some points in his previous 2 games, or sorry, my bad, multiple points. Last game, he didn't get any before that, but like this isn't someone who's 3.2K and playing lots of minutes for a team like Dallas. It just doesn't deserve that salary. Excuse me, where Dowling may not see power play minutes and Pitlick may not be as crucial of a role position as Devon Shore. I really like Devon Shore this slate. As I said in my article, I would have used him as my cover page if more people knew who he was. I really like him this slate. And there isn't really too much to look at in terms of, you can take Spezza with Shore if you want, because one of them, Spezza, centers the line 1 power play and Shore's on the power play 2. So you still get a piece of both the power plays. In terms of the Leafs, I really don't have too many takes because they're still fairly expensive. Kapanen isn't so bad now that he's getting power play time too. So that means you can use him on FanDuel. But in terms of I'll be looking mostly at Tavares. If the Leafs are going to do anything, it'll be squarely through him. I was kind of excited to think I was going to get Nazem Kadri as usual 4K kind of salary, but he's jumped up to the point that it's not really viable in either format. If you're going to use any Leafs, just use John Tavares and only John Tavares. And specifically, I would only use him in cash because I don't really see him having that much of an upside against Dallas, who he's probably going to be matched up to defend against most of the time. So yeah, I'm going to say a 4-1 Dallas win with an empty net goal. And in terms of a player, I really like, again, Devin Shore is going to get at least a point, and from 3.2K, that's all you need. Next game on the slate, we have Pittsburgh traveling to the New York Islanders. And I think this is another really interesting game because it's exact reversal of last game where the New York Islanders absolutely blew out the Penguins for 6 goals. So interestingly enough, Chris Letang should still be out. Will join the team. Okay, that's good. He is back then. Never mind. He probably will play then, dropping Ricola out. So never mind in that take. But in terms of Simon's jumped up in salary just a little bit, and it is a jump up enough to make him not a free play anymore. But in terms of he still plays all the role minutes that you need, and he is still a viable cash play. Is he my favorite? By no means is he my favorite. I have a lot of others that I prefer, especially spending up the slate on winger. So I'm not necessarily that interested in Simon. But in terms of I guess we start with Pittsburgh. It's all really quite simple. Sidney Crosby's 100% back. Like, these fantasy points don't lie. So it's a matter of, do you want 8 fantasy points or not? Yes, we'll get them into any card, all your cards. You don't, then don't get them in your cards and give me your money instead. Like, you can pair them with Simon and GPP if you'd like, or you can stack the entire Pittsburgh Penguin power play, which is always a viable play. I'm not as bullish on the New York Islanders this time around because I think despite their still friendly pricings, number one, they won't be as effective, and number two, people will be on them, making them less relevant GPP play. To the point that I think too many people are probably going to be on guys like Josh Bailey and Barzal, and they will end up doing nothing this game just because last slate they lined up as a contrarian play. They don't really line up as a contrarian play this slate. There's lots of other viable contrarian plays. So, yeah, I'm not really interested in the Islanders. That doesn't mean they can't do it. It's just the scenario, the DFS scenario that surrounds them isn't as appealing for me this slate. So yeah, if you're looking really to get anyone in your cards, it's absolutely Crosby. And if you're looking for a little GPP flair with that, go with Simon to pair with them. It's not that you can't take the Malkin Kessel line. I'm sure they're going to be doing fine. It's just once you get to the point of taking Malkin and Crosby, like, Crosby's a must play. Yeah, Malkin's decent enough, but his floor isn't 8. He may have a double-digit ceiling, then that's fine. Like I said, in GPP, if you want to go Crosby, Malkin, Simon, Kessel, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that outside the salary that you kind of restrict yourself to. Like, you're going to be struggling to really get any kind of action in the rest of your card because Simon made this possible when he was like 2.5 to 3K. At over 4K, this isn't really as viable anymore. So I suppose you could do this if you wanted, the Crosby, Malkin, Kessel, and kind of pair, hope to get a piece of that on the power play as well. But I just plan on sticking to Crosby and going over the field on Crosby because I still think, like I said, a lot of people will be on the Malkin Kessel chase, especially with Malkin $500 more expensive. I just don't, in cash, I don't want to chase that ceiling for 500 more. I'd rather just take my 8 fantasy points and walk when Malkin has the chance of getting half of that. So my pick this game is actually a 5-2 Pittsburgh win. The Islanders will score once to make you question. The Penguins will come back, and then the Islanders will score again late at a rather irrelevant time. But yeah, my pick from this game is definitely Sidney Crosby. Get him into all your cards. Easily the safest play of the slate. Next game, we have Washington traveling to Montreal. And this is a really interesting opportunity for us to consider fading Ovechkin. Is he a good play? Well, obviously, he's Alexander Ovechkin. But he is 8.1K, and in his last 4 or 5 games, he's been good, obviously, with his 13 and 9 and 5 and 10 and 7 and 4.5 is okay, even though he wasn't on the slate. But like 1 at 7.8K, 1 at 7.9K, 1.5 at 8K, 3.5K at 8.1K is not acceptable at all. So, like, yeah, it's Ovechkin. It's awesome. Great. But he's going up against Carey Price. So, like, I'm not just, like, instantly clicking his name in cash like I am some other people. If you have the opportunity to spend up, like I said, other people, Sidney Crosby, if you have the opportunity to spend up, by all means, take Ovechkin in some GPPs. But, like, his floor has been so bad this season that I'm just not interested in him in cash. So, yeah, GPP, feel free to use him as a filler. Cash, I'm just going other places. The same can be said for John Carlson, just way too expensive at 7K. Is he a viable play? Oh, for sure, he's great. But, like, what happens if he reels off a 0 or a 2.5 or a 1? Like, it's just not what I'm looking to do from that kind of salary on defense. Like, if Issa Lindell pulls off a 0.5 from 3.8K, it doesn't matter that much. If John Carlson pulls off anything lower than 2, anything lower than 4, really at 7K, you're in serious trouble. So yeah, I don't like either of the goalies in this game. In particular, I don't like the Holtby Copley. If you're going anywhere, I would definitely take Carey Price in some GPP. I think he has a lot of upside knowing the amount of shots he's going to get. So in case he does do really well, it'll be an astronomically really well compared to just like a normal really well, if you catch my drift there. But yeah, there isn't really too many people I'm looking to target on Montreal. Jonathan Drouin's popped up on my radar a few times. I don't know why. I don't really like him. Same with Vrana. It's just the 5K range. I found a lot of my nicest cards this slate ended around 5K. So I ended up even considering them for cash a couple times because I had such an insane cash card that I didn't want to break down at all, which ended up breaking down, unfortunately, just because these two were just not cash plays this slate. Could they be working GPP? Absolutely. I was thinking more in terms of the lines of Vrana. But yeah, at least he's playing top line minutes and the like. But yeah, in terms of a score, I think it's going to be a shutout for Montreal, honestly. I don't know. This just doesn't feel like a slate where Washington are going to smash and go off and make everyone regret. I think Montreal can. This really feels like the Penguins Islanders game from last slate, where it was just like Montreal is set up to be the contrarian brilliant play this slate. So I don't mind Carey Price and GPP, but in terms of final score, 3-2 Capitals, and nobody really does enough to. They all do fine because they're the Capitals, but nobody really does enough to pay off their enormous salaries. So I'd rather spend elsewhere this slate. Next game is Buffalo at Ottawa, and this is another, like it cost me last night when I talked about both the Arizona-Ottawa game being garbage and the Buffalo-Calgary game, or Buffalo-Columbus game, excuse me. That's when that slate was, because we took Eichel last slate, and I expected it to shoot out like crazy, and it didn't. So like I haven't really been getting these two teams right as of late, and it's kind of upsetting. I'd rather not place a take again tonight, but that goes against what I stand for. So let's at least try to break this down from a logical perspective. And Carter Hutton has been playing really good in terms of his expected, like what you can hope for the Buffalo Sabres goaltender. But in terms of my hope, I hope they start Allmark again. I think nobody would be on him. And from 7.5K, that's a super accessible salary because the Senators just haven't been very good. They're coming back off a massive road swing where they were down south and where they were absolutely brutal. Like this road swing basically took their salaries from 5-6Ks out players to 4Ks. So yeah, Chabot's still really high because he's been playing really well and has had a really decent floor up until their absolute burner against Arizona last slate. But yeah, I have no interest in Ottawa simply because I think Buffalo have a star player and Ottawa doesn't, and Ottawa will be spending more of their time worrying about the star player than actually going out and winning the game. Do I have a super take? Not really. Maybe a 4-3 Buffalo if you want to be like super ceiling oriented about it, and you could take Eichel's line and maybe game stack it with something from Ottawa. It's gross, but like it's all affordable, right? Like this isn't costing you an arm and a leg to get in Sidney Crosby as well as a Phil. So it's yeah, a little bit too expensive. Who would we drop? Any of them? Oh my god, they're all so expensive. Like it doesn't even appeal to me for DFS. Like sure, the game could shoot out because their goalies suck, but they're all bad players. So I don't know. 3-1 Buffalo, empty net goal. Yeah, let's go with that. That way, it's a script we can buy into where it's a safe fade, and we didn't really need to worry about any player on either team. Next game on the slate is New Jersey at Detroit, and I think this game is absolutely jam-packed with DFS relevance and will probably be the game that defines your slate. So like I said, Corey Snyder could come back this slate. It wouldn't surprise me at 8.1K. I don't think he would garner enough ownership in either format. I'd rather not play him in cash because it's just too much risk of his unknown. But in GPP, I'd love to fire up some lack of ownership on Corey Snyder. Like I said, I think this game is just loaded. Vatanen is viable. Mike Green is one of my favorite GPP plays this slate. He's arguably from 4.4K, $1,000 underpriced here in DraftKings. And the same can be said on FanDuel, where he's also way too farly underpriced. And I think he is the reason that Detroit are winning the games that they're winning. He makes them a completely different team. And it really opens up a lot of other space for guys like Dylan Larkin to do his thing. Now, I'm not so keen about the New Jersey goaltender situation, so I have no issue again this slate going back to another game stack with Detroit where we try and get Nico Hischier. We still got Jack Eichel in there. Nico Hischier's price is way too much for me at DraftKings, but in FanDuel, he's absolutely viable in terms of GPP to fill or to game stack with. And like Taylor Hall is another one of the best plays of the entire slate. Like the guy just puts out a floor like it's his job, and you're not going to see double digits, but you're also not going to see zero. So yeah, I have no issue with Taylor Holland like continuing on the game stack. I'm not really psyched to have Vatanen from that salary, but like Mike Green all day, and yeah. So again, I still have a really cheap value winger that I'm using with Crosby almost every time I put him in a GPP. So I'll get to that. But in terms of, I love this game stack. I would just keep the Taylor Hall and cash, though. Outside of that, I'm not as keen on everyone. But, yeah, he's an undisputable one of the safest plays to the slate. And in turn, like I said, in terms of Detroit, just the first line is totally viable at home because they can always get a matchup against the weaker Devils line. And if in fact Corey Snyder, Kincaid hasn't even been that good as of late, but if Snyder does start, there's a lot of risk there in terms of what he can not do and the amount of goals he'll let in coming back for injury. So yeah, I'm going to say a 4-0 Detroit. Or 4-0 Detroit, 4-0 New Jersey win. That was close because I think Detroit are really due for some serious loss regression. This 3-game winning streak isn't really that deserved. So this feels like kind of a shoe-in to me. But at the same time, I think they can score. So I'm maybe a little bit more inclined to say something like 3-2, 4-2. But yeah, this just doesn't feel like a spot where Detroit can go off to me. It feels more like they'll be playing catch up to the Devils more than not. Next game on the slate, we have Nashville traveling to Tampa Bay. And basically, as it stands right now, Tampa Bay are the best team in the NHL. Vasilevsky is easily the best goalie in the NHL. And any slate you can get him at the not most expensive salary, you basically have to jump on him. Now, on FanDuel, it's a completely different scenario because he is the most expensive, and he's almost too expensive. But on DraftKings, I have absolutely no problem with Vasilevsky from the salary. So yeah, that's the first place you can start with Tampa Bay. Either format, cash or GPP, he'll be fine. You can go down the list here again, and there's lots of viability, especially in the first two. McDonough is basically a cash lock for me in either format. You can play him in either site. You only have to look at last slate as to why it's almost a must play. With Hedman out, the Lightning have basically just been going absolutely ham on the scoreboard. So while Hedman is out, I'm going to continue looking to use them, even despite their massive ownership. And it's not like Soros or Rene has been, well, Soros especially, hasn't been doing well enough to make us fear the Predators. And at the same time, Rene, if he does play, is coming back from injury, and that's absolutely nothing to fear whatsoever. And if anything, something to target. So yeah, I'm really looking at this slate at Tampa. As I mentioned in my article, basically pick any player, any line in the first two lines of both the power play and even strength, and you should be absolutely fine. And in particular, I like the Braden Point to Gourde and Tyler Johnson. Like I was saying, I kept on landing on the 5K range, and those two were repeatedly there. And Point salary is just way too cheap at 5.5K. Absolutely cash viable this slate from that salary. And he's also too cheap on FanDuel. He isn't as cheap as I would prefer, and he isn't the cheapest. But in terms of overall viability, this salary is just way too cheap on Braden Point, and he's absolutely rocks either format. So yeah, like I said, feel free to absolutely load up in Tampa when they're this cheap. Any player Phil you want to stack. I'm not as crazy about Nashville just because I think Vasilevsky's on the top of his game right now, and I'm in no way looking to God, the Lightning decide decide to start Dominique. Just game stack this game, get in as many nations as you possibly can. I would suggest maybe not max entering, but multiple entering tournaments with just different combos of this game stack and filling in a random goalie as is from different games. But in terms of this game, if Vasilevsky's starting, get him into your cash cards or GPP and play as much Lightning as you can, because they're probably not letting in a goal. And from these salaries, that's just too cheap. I will say, let's go, because the Lightning are just playing so well right now, 5 or 6-1 for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and someone in there will get a hat trick this game. I'm going to go with Braden Point just because his salary is so nice. But yeah, you can really go with anyone in the Tampa Bay Lightning uniform, and you'll be absolutely fine. One last player I wanted to mention that's really interesting to me, especially on FanDuel, is Cirelli. Basically, he dominates the penalty kill for them. He plays all of his time almost on the penalty kill. So while I really wouldn't expect a lot of cash or even strength relevance on a site like FanDuel, Australia can make you crazy bank in terms of the extra bonus points, and you do get those shorthanded bonus points on DraftKings as well. But on FanDuel, it's just more valuable. So for me, like I said, you can rock the Braden Point and cash in the Ryan McDonough, and you'll be absolutely fine either way. But yeah, I'm going to say 5-1 Tampa Bay Lightning. Next game on the slate, we have the Vegas Golden Knights taking on the St. Louis Blues. And this is another situation where you can absolutely just game stack this either way. Neither goaltender has been functional at all. Fleury has let in 3 goals like it's his job. And Jake Allen has been literally an absolute consistently and regularly letting in 5 goals a game. So yeah, I'm not interested in either goaltender. Stack up on either offense. Avoid the defenses because they are also getting a little bit too expensive. Maybe not so much on the Vegas side of things. Let's see if Brad Hunt has taken back any of that power play time. He is not even there. Okay, never mind. They got John Maryland and Brady McNabb. Okay, that's fair. That's fine. With the end, Kyle Miller, Hike is playing there too. Interesting. Okay. Anyways, like I said, any line here, kind of the same idea. If Dominique's starting for Tampa, just take the line combinations and keep punching them into DraftKings. Probably one of my favorite lines of the night is Braden Shen, Tarasenko, and where is he? Jaden Schwartz at only 4.7K. I think that's a crazy, crazy viable line at home. Obviously, doesn't work in this scenario. It's a little bit overpriced. But in terms of, I think Braden Shen and Tarasenko or both a better team, but in terms of Tarasenko, I'm looking at a team that's going to be letting in minimum 3 goals. So with Tarasenko, I have no issue game stacking this. Alex Tuch's another guy I'm really interested in. But yeah, in the William Karlsson at 5K looks appealing, but he's just been absolutely garbage in terms of DFS. And while I think he does have some relevance against St. Louis, it would only be in a game stack scenario or a scenario where you're stacking the Marcia Show, Riley Smith, and Carlson, excuse me. I also do like a lot Alex Tuch. I think he's super sneaky at only 5.6K. But in terms of cash, maybe Tarasenko, but I think there's better options here to be had this slate. And I would rather just stick with the Braden point over Shen anyway. So for this game, I'm going to say 5-4 St. Louis in overtime. No goaltender. It wouldn't surprise me if both goalies get pulled, honestly. But yeah, that's my take for the Vegas St. Louis. Next game on the slate is Colorado traveling to Calgary. And basically, like I said earlier, Nathan MacKinnon's one of the safer cash plays this slate because Calgary is so bad in nets. Absolutely atrocious. David Rich is like their only hope for a legitimate shot at a win, and that's saying something. So, yeah, if they do start Mike Smith, just load up on the Colorado. Feel free. The top line is still absolutely dynamo with Landeskog, Rantanen, and Nathan MacKinnon. Still one of the best lines in the league. Their salary is obviously up there, but really, I don't know how many people will be owning Colorado whenever they are owning Toronto and Pittsburgh or Montreal or just another homer team. So yeah, I really like Colorado's top line. I like Nathan MacKinnon and cash. The only issue is that you're basically going to have to choose between Nathan MacKinnon or Crosby in terms of like the high salary. I'll get to McDavid here in a moment. But in terms of you can't take both and then still get Taylor Hall and a decent goaltender. You'll have to drop Hall and spend up in centers. And I think Taylor Hall is a must play this slate at Detroit. So yeah, I don't, like I said, if Varlamov's excellent too this slate. I have no issue with him in cash or a GPP from 7.7K. The only reason he's priced down this low is Calgary's been winning okay recently, and he's on the road. Now, if Calgary start Mike Smith, Varlamov's excellent in either format for me. If Calgary starts David Rittich, I would keep Varlamov to just GPP. But yeah, either format, what I've basically been doing is taking some Varlamov and Nathan MacKinnon in cash, and then another card takes some Valashnevsky and Crosby and kind of spend down in a couple other places. So yeah, I don't mind this at all. I think it's a really good game to look at for Colorado standpoint, but my interest won't be drawn much outside that top line. Now, in terms of Ian Cole is another player that you're going to have to consider for cash this slate, only 4.4K. He's been shooting and blocking enough shots to pay off from that salary. So I have absolutely no issue with him in cash. And I would probably stay away from a GPP just because it isn't really a viable GPP script. But for cash, he has excellent floor built from those block shots. So jump on some Ian Cole. I'm going to say 4-1, 4-2 Colorado win. They could even shut out Calgary. It wouldn't surprise me if Colorado go up early and quickly. And like 2-0 within the first 5 minutes, and Calgary is busy playing catch up for the rest of the game rather than scoring lots of goals. So I'm obviously not as keened into Varlamov with the first line of Calgary being as they are. So I'd rather stick to Valashnevsky as my top goaltender play of the slate. But in terms of another option, Varlamov is absolutely up there. Next game on the slate, we have Chicago at Edmonton. There's only really a couple things to talk about in this game. If Chicago starts Cam Ward, we're going to have to play McDavid instead of McKinnon, and maybe even instead of Crosby, because the double-digit upside will just be incredible. If Chicago start Corey Crawford, then we can fade McKinnon because he probably will still score, but he doesn't have as much upside, where Crosby and McKinnon will both have the exact same floor and tons more upside for way less salary. So that's really my take on the McDavid situation for this game. But ideally, the spot I'm going to be looking at most is to see if Patrick Kane will be playing. Like I said, they played last night and Patrick Kane missed because he was sick. I honestly don't know if that will cause him to miss again tonight, but I'm desperately hoping it does because I'm hedging a lot on Chris Kunitz playing tonight at only 2.5K. An absolute free play from this salary. Either format, use him as a fill. I'm not really keen on stacking him with the even strength line of Anisimov and Saad. But on the power play, feel free to get Kunitz in there. He's just a free play from the salary. 2.5K is too cheap. Now, if Kane starts, we can't play Kunitz, and it's a nightmare. But if Kane doesn't start again, get Kunitz into your cards. He got an assist last night. He's more than capable, more than viable. From 2.5K, it's literally a free play. And like I talked about with McDavid, he's basically the only take from Edmonton, and he totally relies on Corey Crawford not playing. Corey Crawford plays, we can fade him. If Corey Crawford's not playing, you're probably going to have to take McDavid over Crosby and cash more times than not. I think it's going to be a fairly low-scoring game if Corey Crawford plays, probably like a 2-1, 3-1 win for Chicago, maybe 3-2 tops, but I really don't see McDavid getting more than a goal and an assist. That'd probably be his max ceiling, where I think guys like Crosby have that more as a floor, especially as well as he's been playing as of late. So, yeah, as a take, let's go 3-2. 3-2 Chicago win if Corey Crawford starts. If Corey Crawford doesn't play, 5-4 Chicago win, and you're probably going to have to game stack it just like every other game this slate. There's a lot of game stacks this slate, a lot of non-goalies. So, yeah, that's really my take there, either 3-2 or 5-4 for Chicago. Next game on the slate, we have the Rangers traveling to Anaheim. And this is another really crappy game, but it isn't absolutely void of options. The Rangers have one of my favorite cash plays this slate in Neil Poink. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's on the best team or he's playing the best or anything like that, but his salary is just way too cheap from the amount of floor he puts out consistently. Anyone, basically, you need someone over 2 fantasy points, and he doesn't have any issue doing that, even in really unfavorable game scripts. So I really like this in terms of a lineup so far. Again, we're really hedging a lot on Kunitz playing. If Kunitz doesn't play, it kind of hamstrings us, and we have to scrap and completely rebuild. So I'm hedging a lot on Kunitz playing tonight because if he does, it's literally everything. It is the slate. I think you should get Neil Poinkin to send me your cards. But I don't mind Zuccarelli either. He's way too cheap for the amount of roles and minutes he's playing. But that's basically it for me from the Rangers, because the Ducks still do possess John Gibson, statistically the best goaltender in the league. So I'm not like itching and scratching at a chance to go against him with players in GPP. Cam Fowler's been playing pretty good, but his salary's getting to a point where we're not really like keying in on it. We're key 5.7 and is absolutely cash viable. He isn't my favorite cash play. Is going as an ideal. Now they are considering starting Grigoriev today, and the problem with me in Anaheim is that they've just been really bad as of late, like really, really bad. So if you want to take Rakeel and cash, if Grigoriev is starting, absolutely, I have no issue with that. But I would prefer him as a GPP dart kind of thing. And the same can be said for Ryan Getzlaf at 6.3K. If they do start Grigoriev, you can use him if you fall on him. He's not like the worst play, but I'd rather just drop down to a Braden Shen or Point. Both of them have way more upside and a way safer floor to me than Ryan Getzlaf at 6.3. But yeah, get Neil Poink into your cash cards today from the New York Rangers. I think that's going to be absolutely crucial. Not spending more than 4.5K on all 3 of both your defense and flex. in cash, that's really going to open up the door to be able to do what you want from here, because there's still one more player I haven't got to yet that's an absolute cash lock this slate. Will be coming up shortly. But yeah, in terms of where are we here? There we are, New York and Anaheim. Sorry. I don't see this being a high-scoring game. Two very talented goaltenders and two offenses that aren't really good. But at the same time, it could just easily as game stack like all the others because they're so cheap. I would definitely start around doing only Anaheim 1 and New York 2. But yeah, in terms of the score, let's say 2-1 New York Rangers. I just don't see Anaheim playing very well right now. They aren't void of options. I should mention again, sorry, Auberg has been playing incredible. For GPP, he's absolutely viable, but he isn't cash viable even from this salary, and I'll tell you why. Because he's basically scored on every shot he's taken for the past 2 games, and this just isn't sustainable. And the 2 shots even isn't sustainable. So, like, yeah, it's great that he's scoring so well right now, but like he's not going to keep this up. So take it in GPP if you want, but do not risk it in cash. It's going to be a huge leak. I think a lot of people will fall on in cash, and it's just not something that can keep up. And this seems like a slate going up a team like the Rangers where he wouldn't be able to keep that up. So yeah, I'll say 2-1 Rangers just to be a jerk, but it's probably going to be something like 3-1 Anaheim. Next game on the slate, the Flyers take on the Kings. Jonathan Quick's hurt, so Jack Campbell should be back, and I think he makes a really excellent option at 7.8K. He's definitely not my favorite cash option, but for GPP, I think he's super sneaky because LA are generally a defensive team that don't allow a lot of goals, and with the discount at 7.8K, we're getting an elite goalie without the super price tag. Because make no mistake, despite winning last night, the Philadelphia Flyers are absolutely brutal. They have no goaltender whatsoever. Brian Elliott is brutal, and like he was bailed out by his team last slate. They had an excellent game at San Jose and against Anaheim, and really that's a lot of it was that they were playing Ryan Miller, not John Gibson, and Anaheim weren't really up to it, where I'm quite sure LA are going to be absolutely up for it. So I'm going to fade Philly again this slate. I don't have too many concerns around it because even if they do win, it's going to be like a 2-1 score and they really won't pay off. Now LA on the other hand, I think are chock full of options. Like I said, Jack Campbell is useful in GPP. I think Alex Martinez is really interesting in either format from 4.1K. I'd rather keep him to GPP, though. I think Kovalchuk is really interesting from 5.5K. Not someone I'm jumping at in terms of a cash play because he's dropped down to the 3rd line. He still does get excellent roll minutes in the power play, and he still is the original Ovi. But in terms of this slate, I'd rather just keep Kovalchuk to GPP. But yeah, Jeff Carter is probably one of my more favorable plays for GPP this slate. He plays line 2, power play 1 from only 4.6K going up against Brian Elliott. I don't know how that doesn't do good things. That's borderline cash viable, despite him being in no way a cash player this season. He hasn't shot the puck enough, and he hasn't blocked any shots. So, like, there's no reason really to take Jeff Carter other than he's playing Brian Elliott, and he's only 4.6K in an incredible role spot for the Kings. And if you're looking to drop down off the, like, honestly, if you're playing McDavid, you kind of have to drop down to Jeff Carter for cash just because his salary is that attainable. Or maybe even take some Devin Shore if you want to take a little bit of risk. But yeah, in terms of LA, I think they're all mingling cash options, but excellent GPP plays, especially Jeff Carter from that salary is one of my more favorable plays this slate. Not my favorite, but one of my more favorable. I'm going to say 2-0 LA, 2-1. They could get up to 4 goals, but once they're ahead, I just don't see them pushing the lead, and I don't see Philly being good enough to break down the LA defensive core. So, yeah, that's really my take there. Get in some of Jeff Carter. Last game of the slate, we have Columbus traveling to San Jose. And as I've been mentioning, Bobrovsky's just not up to it this year. He's not playing well enough. So Martin Jones is a really safe play for either format. I would prefer to keep him in cash because I don't think he can get a shutout. But I think the win is so safe that you can roll with 7.9 in cash and not feel too worried. So basically my goaltenders would be Vasilevskiy, Jones, and sorry, Voldemort, Varlamov, Simeon Varlamov, are my three main goalie plays for either format this slate. But yeah, Vasilevsky is definitely my favorite. I just know how safe the San Jose Shark win is going to be against Columbus because Bobrovsky's just been that bad. And Columbus on the road is a far inferior team than the Columbus team at home. Their salaries are massively inflated outside again of Dubois, but going up against the Sharks, there's just no matchup you can find against the Sharks that's appealing. So basically what I'll be doing this slate is I really like Couture a lot. I think he makes sense. You can use him in cash. He isn't my favorite option, whether on the slate or from this team. But I do have a favorite play this slate, a favorite cash option this slate. And no, it's not Evander Kane, if that's what you thought I was going to click. It's Timo Meier. Absolute flames this season. From 6.1K, this is mind-boggling how this guy is priced so cheap on the San Jose Sharks. He's only scored under 4 fantasy points once this season, and it was the very first game. And look at the teams that he's putting these points up against. Like, he made the Nashville game look easy. He made the New Jersey game look easy. I won't pretend that the Sharks haven't had a really easy schedule. But at the same time, Timo Meier is playing line 1. The power play line 2 is incredible this slate for me on San Jose. The Columbus Blue Jackets have one of the worst penalty kills in the league, and I don't see them not taking penalties on basically the other side of the continent on a road swing here. So yeah, I really like power play 2. Again, Timo Meier ends up there. I think fading Evander Kane, I think, is pretty sharp because I also think a lot of people are going to be on Evander Kane, and he really hasn't been playing well enough as late to warrant any kind of exposure. Like literally, he's done worse in his last three games than Meier has in his entire season. So yeah, I'm all about the Timo Meier. Cash or GPP, use him as a fill. Get him in a stack with Logan Couture or Pavelski, whichever you prefer. Both were, or I guess Joe Thornton or Pavelski there. And for the power play, you have no issue pairing him up with. I guess he doesn't play with Logan Couture at all, doesn't he? Don't pair him up with Logan Couture. That's a really bad idea, even though I like them both separately. That was my note. I forgot that. Sorry. I don't like them paired. I like them separate. So, yeah, I have no issue with Timo Meier and cash this slate. Probably my favorite player of the entire slate. And if you do that and then you take a Braden Shen or a point in the center slot, you're able basically to get any goaltender you want. And you're also going to be able to spend up on Kunitz if he ends up not starting to someone like Devon Shore. So I literally just built a cash card for you. Like, I love this slate. I think the 3 or 5 players that you really need to get in there are Sidney Crosby, Timo Meier, Taylor Hall, Ryan McDonough. And in terms of a goaltender, I'm going to be locking in a lot of Vasilevsky on DraftKings. Now, on FanDuel, Vasilevsky is the most expensive goaltender, so I'm not as keened in on as that, and I'd rather drop down to Martin Jones over there, or even take some Jack Campbell if you want a little bit of risk in cash. I don't hate him on FanDuel. But in DraftKings, I just don't see the point in taking Jack Campbell when you can have Vasilevsky, the best goaltender in the league, for the exact same price. So, yeah, that's really my take this slate. I'm not going to go over tiers for the specific purpose because on them lately, and I'm trying to get ups for people in my Slack, in our Slack chat at RotoPros. So I'm only sharing my tiers information with everyone in Slack and in our RotoPros lineup page where we give out our skeletons for every slate. But I'm really looking forward to today in general. Golf's about to tee off here in a few minutes. I got 3 different entries in the big golf PGA tournament today based off of RotoPros information. So I'm really looking forward to this. I'm really looking forward to this slate in general. I think Thursday is going to be good. I'm going to be back tomorrow morning for the EPL breakdown. I'm actually really happy with the lack of time this video took today. This is what I hope to get more videos down to in the near future. So as always, comment, like, subscribe. I'll have the timestamps down below in the basic info. So if you just want to jump to something ahead, go there. But yeah, thanks a lot for tuning in. My name is Rob Diamond, Rad Rob Diamond, sir, on Twitter, Sir Robert 6 on all the main sites, RotoPros.com. Thank you very much. Take care, everyone. Good luck. Much love.